Okay, let's get into this. You know that feeling, right? You're looking
Right.
for something, some way to move, something that actually feels good, makes a difference.
Hmm.
But I don't know, the gym can feel like a drag. Maybe team sports feel a bit risky, injury-wise.
Or things like yoga, maybe Pilates, just don't quite hit the spot for everyone. They feel a bit quiet sometimes.
Exactly. You're hunting for that perfect thing, effective, maybe even a little unexpected.
And what often happens is people just default to walking, which, the material we looked at is great, fantastic activity, really essential.
Right.
But, and this is a key point from the sources, if you're after proper exercise, something that really trains your body and your brain well, walking by itself might not cut it.
Okay, so that's the setup.
Hmm.
What if you could take walking, that really basic human movement, and kind of supercharge it,
Hmm.
turn it into like a full body workout,
Yeah.
something that's physically tough, but also does something more
Hmm.
for your head, your mental state.
And that's exactly the potential the sources see in Nordic walking. It's presented as this solution.
So that's what this deep dive is all about. We're going to unpack the material you sent over, really dig into it.
Yeah, figure out what Nordic walking actually is, what makes it supposedly so much more than just, walking with sticks.
And crucially, how to do it right. Because that seems to be the key to getting all those benefits the sources talk about.
And avoiding the pitfalls. Yeah.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. What are we actually talking about here?
Yeah.
Nordic walking.
Well, the simplest definition is just walking with poles.
Okay.
They look a bit like ski poles, which makes sense, actually, because that's where it came from about 100 years back.
Ah, right.
Skiers needed a way to train off-season when there wasn't snow, so they adapted poles for walking on regular ground.
So they aren't just any old ski poles then. You can't just grab some from the attic.
Well-
The sources mention specific details.
Oh yeah, they definitely point out the differences. Nordic walking poles, they're usually lighter, for starters.
Lighter, okay.
And the tip, the bit that hits the ground, it's specially designed. The sources use terms like taco or talon, and you can actually change it out depending on the surface, asphalt, dirt, sand.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the wrist strap. It's called the Dragonera. It's not just, so you don't drop the pole. It's actually vital for the proper technique.
And that brings us to something the sources stress right away,
Mm-hmm.
which really highlights why technique matters so much.
What's that?
They warn that if you don't do it correctly, you can actually injure yourself, specifically the upper body.
Yeah. That's a pretty stark warning, isn't it? It tells you straight up, this isn't something to just wing. You really need to understand the form. Technique is, well, it's everything if you want the good stuff without the bad stuff.
Which leads nicely into this really important distinction the sources make. It kind of sets the stage for why Nordic walking is seen as so effective.
The difference between physical activity and physical exercise. Yeah, that's a really key idea here. Physical activity is basically any movement. Taking the stairs, walking to the shop. It's movement.
And it's good, essential even. Our bodies are designed for it.
Absolutely. Evolution built us to move. But physical exercise, according to these sources, that's different.
How so?
Well, exercise requires intensity. It involves muscle contraction, a real demand on your body and your mind. It's about actively training yourself. Your muscles, yes, but also your brain.
And they paint a pretty grim picture of modern life, don't they? Something about sitting.
Yeah, just 6 hours of sitting a day, which isn't even a full workday for many people.
You're right.
That can apparently start causing atrophy, a kind of weakening, a wasting away.
In muscles and neurons.
Both, yeah. Muscles and brain cells, which is quite sobering.
So going for a walk is good activity, definitely better than just sitting.
Oh, for sure.
But the sources argue it often doesn't hit that threshold for exercise because it doesn't involve enough muscle groups or enough intensity.
Precisely. It doesn't provide that stimulus needed for deeper training effects across the whole system.
Okay, so this is where Nordic walking steps in. It's supposed to bridge that gap.
That's the idea. It takes the activity of walking and transforms it into proper exercise.
Oh.
By bringing in the poles, used correctly, you add a significant amount of work for your upper body and your core. It's not just legs anymore.
So the poles aren't passive. They're actively engaging your arms, shoulders, chest, back.
Your core muscles, exactly. They're all working hard right alongside your legs.
Now, the sources get really interesting here, talking about our upper body from an evolutionary perspective.
Yeah, this part's fascinating. They argue that our arms, shoulders, they're naturally better suited for things like pulling, holding, carrying weight.
Okay.
They're not primarily designed for supporting our body weight by pushing down constantly, especially not in the way we might try to use them today.
Right, they had that memorable phrase for it, the Spider-Man syndrome.
Yeah. It's vivid, isn't it? They use it to describe people who, maybe because of issues with their legs or balance, start leaning heavily on things.
Like leaning on walls, furniture,
Mm,
or even canes or crutches.
exactly. They're essentially trying to use their arms for support, almost like walking on four limbs.
And the problem with that is,
Well, think about your shoulder girdle, the whole complex around your shoulders and collarbones. It's built for mobility, for complex movements.
okay,
It's not built like your pelvic girdle, your hips, which is this solid, strong foundation designed to bear your weight when you stand and walk.
I see.
So trying to constantly support your body weight through your shoulders, pushing down, that can lead to injuries. Shoulders, wrists, elbows, even your neck can suffer.
Like those examples they gave people getting shoulder pain from relying too much on a cane or issues from using crutches long term.
Yeah, it makes sense when you think about the design. Shoulders are for movement, not for being pillars.
Sure, there are exceptions like high-level gymnastics or calisthenics.
Right, but that requires intense conditioning, maybe even specific body types. For most people, the sources say, the rule is shoulders aren't for sustained, heavy vertical support like legs are.
Okay, so if Nordic walking uses poles and you plant them on the ground, the absolute key must be not using them for that kind of downward support.
That is the critical point, the absolute core secret of the technique.
It's not about leaning.
No, correct.
Yeah.
Nordic walking is not about leaning on the poles for support, and it's definitely not about pushing straight down.
Okay, so if you're not pushing down, what are you doing?
Propulsion. You plant the pole behind you at an angle, they say, roughly 45 degrees back from your direction of travel.
Behind you, okay.
And the movement is a powerful push backwards against the ground. That push propels you forwards.
Propulsion, not support. That changes everything.
Completely. It changes how your body works, which muscles fire, the forces involved.
And that wrist strap, the Dragonera, that helps with this.
Exactly. It helps you transfer that pushing power through the pole without having to grip it super tightly the whole time. It makes the propulsion smoother and more efficient.
So mastering that backward push, that forward propulsion, that's essential.
Non-negotiable. For safety, avoiding those upper body issues, and for actually getting the benefits.
And speaking of benefits, when you do nail that technique, the sources list, well, they call them innumerable benefits.
Yeah, the list is pretty impressive. Done right, it really enhances that natural cross-body movement, opposite arm and leg working together.
But much more powerfully.
Much more. You're actively engaging your core.
Heavily, you mentioned.
Definitely. Plus shoulders, triceps, the back of your arms, deltoids on top of the shoulders, your lats down your back, pectorals in your chest. Basically, the entire upper and middle body gets a workout.
While your legs are still doing the walking part.
Correct. Lower body still gets trained.
And it's adaptable too, right? The sources mentioned surfaces.
Totally adaptable. You can do it pretty much anywhere. Sand, snow, mountain trails, dirt paths, gravel.
You just need the right tip for the pole.
Yep. Change the tip to match the terrain. And crucially, good footwear that's suited both for the surface and for working with the poles.
Does it feel easier on the joints compared to, say, running?
The sources suggest it can be. Lower impact than some other activities, potentially making it a really good option for people with knee, hip, or maybe back pain.
Even for elite athletes, it's not just for recovery or lower intensity.
Apparently not. It's presented as great cross-training. Because it works muscles in a different way, even highly trained athletes can find it challenging. They feel it the next day, according to the material.
Interesting. But there was one benefit the sources seemed really, really passionate about.
You mean the fact that it's always done outdoors?
Yeah. That seemed more than just fresh air is nice.
Oh, much more. This is where the psychocognitive angle, the brain benefits, really come in strongly.
Right.
They draw a sharp contrast between exercising outdoors and exercising indoors, which they kind of dismissively call exercising in a box.
So it's not just about liking nature.
It's deeper than that, according to them. They state quite clearly that exercising outdoors trains both physical plasticity, your body's ability to adapt,
Okay.
and neuronal plasticity, your brain's ability to change, adapt, and stay healthy.
And they made a pretty bold claim about being able to see this difference.
Yeah, they suggested that if you compared brain activity on an MRI scan, you'd actually see differences between someone exercising indoors versus outdoors.
Wow.
Being outdoors, in their view, is what closes the loop. It makes it a truly holistic mind and body workout in a way that indoor exercise can't replicate.
Okay, so if someone's listening and thinking, maybe this is for me, what are the key practical takeaways from the sources? Right, getting started.
Well, first off, get the pole height right. Adjust them correctly for your own height. That's basic but important.
Makes sense.
Second, make sure the grips are comfortable. You don't want hand pain interfering.
And the number one thing, the absolute must-do.
Technique, technique, technique. I know we keep saying it, but it's that crucial.
Mastering the propulsion.
Mastering that backward push for forward momentum, not leaning down for support. That is absolutely fundamental for safety and for getting all these benefits we've talked about.
The sources even had personal stories, didn't they? People saying it was genuinely life-changing when done properly.
Yeah, it really seems to bring everything together, the full body physical work, the mental focus needed for the coordination, and that huge added bonus of being out in the natural world.
So yeah, Nordic walking isn't just walking plus sticks. It's a very specific technique.
A propulsive technique.
Right, that transforms walking into this really comprehensive exercise. Hits muscles you wouldn't normally use, gives you a ton of physical benefits.
And critically boosts your brain health because you're doing it outside.
It definitely sounds like a compelling option, moving beyond just leg day to, well, everything day. All based on understanding how our bodies are actually designed to move.
And how they interact with the environment.
So here's something to chew on from all this. That idea that simply being outside when you exercise might fundamentally change how your brain responds, maybe even visibly on a scan.
Yeah.
How does thinking about that distinction indoor versus outdoor maybe change how you view your own activity choices?
Yeah.
And also, considering our body's design, like the shoulders being built for movement, not sustained support, how might understanding that influence not just Nordic walking if you try it, maybe even how you think about other everyday movements or postures? It really prompts you to connect your body's mechanics with the world around you.